Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the front room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about a major Blackhawks bit of news. We're also going to be discussing the rumors of Russell Wilson to the Chicago Bears. And we'll probably round this out with some spring training baseball.
But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford IceHogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford IceHogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. This season is on. Sure, you can't go to the game, but shouldn't stop you from signing on to AHL TV or heading on over to icehogs.com, getting yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, and sign up for when they are able to have in-person tickets and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, were you ready for the big Blackhawks news that was announced this week?
Yes and no. I wasn't expecting it to happen at this moment, but I'm not really surprised that it happened, and I think many people would feel the same way.
You know, we've been hoping it would happen. I think most people, just because of the contract and the, you know, the inability to stay healthy, and just the slower skating speed, and you know, it just, he's not the same guy. And I think most of us were hoping he just called it a career, but I mean, the pride in him seemed to just keep carrying on there with all these surgeries and crazy injuries. He didn't seem to want to hang it up. And so that's what kind of threw me off. I figured he was going to keep trying and trying, but you know, Father Time wins every time.
Yeah, and it sounds like from what he said that he was really struggling with some of the physical ailments that came with it around the holidays. And, you know, hearing that, it makes me glad that he made the decision to call it quits now before something potentially, you know, could have happened to him to have further worsened some of those symptoms. It comes at a point where you just probably got to say, you know what, I physically cannot do this. As much as my mental drive tries to keep me going, there's got to be a time where you got to say, you know, body first. And I think Seabrook made the right decision for him. You know, I'm not him. I'm not a doctor. But from what he was describing, you know, not being able to get out of bed like around the holidays, I think it was. I think that's a sign where you got to think of your health first. And, you know, I'm glad he did. And I'm glad he was able to go out, you know, not risking any further injury to himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I just want to reiterate because, you know, we've sort of been on the same page about this for a long time now. Is Brent Seabrook is absolutely instrumental in all three Blackhawks Stanley Cup victories. Absolutely. And, you know, neither one of us were mad about having Brent Seabrook on the team. It's just the contract he signed was an albatross after a certain point because he was worth nowhere near what the money he was being paid was.
And you know what? I can't blame Seabrook or be mad at him at all for taking that contract. You know, that's on Stan Bowman. He's the one that gave him that contract. And of course, if you're a player, you're going to take the money. I mean, who wouldn't take the money? So, you know, I have no reason to hold anything against him, as I'm sure you don't either. I just, yeah, you know, it was a very, very bad contract. I mean, when he signed it, he was already, I believe he was already on the wrong side of 30, had a ton of miles on him. You know, he's played a lot of hockey. He's been with the organization for a very long time, like almost 2 decades. And figuring he's played in 15 seasons and he made his debut in the mid-2000s, It's easy to think, oh yeah, mid 2000s, a few years ago. It's like, no, that was over a decade ago. And then you account for all those playoff games. But Bowman gave him the big contract, and they've had cap issues, but now it's not going to be as big of an issue. And I really hope that the fan base, and from what I've seen, it seems like this is the case. The fan base, as frustrated as we all were about the contract, everybody realized that the reputation of Brent Seabrook, his legacy, is going to be a man who was one of the absolute most key players in 3 championships, and a man who scored one of the biggest goals in franchise history that wasn't a Stanley Cup game-winning goal. And I do want to talk about that moment a little bit later in the show. I mean, Brent Seabrook was an absolute cornerstone for that organization for a number of years. And him and Duncan Keith have played more games together than any other defenseman duo in the history of hockey. I mean, that's incredible.
And when you went that blew me away when I saw that.
I thought there's no way it's those two. There had to be somebody else. And you see guys on that list. You saw like Scott Niedermayer on that list, and you're thinking, damn, that's some good company that they're with. And they play more than any of those guys with other pairs. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm going to guess that the goal you're talking about is the Game 7 overtime winner against Detroit?
Yes. And if we can just talk about that for a few minutes, because I think it's important.
Yes.
I started my own little sports blog, and I reflected on that goal, where I was, what I was doing, who I was with. But then I also reflected on what that meant for the Blackhawks. And, the first you look at it on the surface, it was a Game 7 overtime goal in a championship season. It helped propel them to a Stanley Cup. But that goal meant so much more than just winning a playoff series. It meant exercising so many demons of the past. Sean, you're older than I am. You've watched hockey longer than I have. But you can say pretty much the same thing as me, that through most of our lives as Blackhawks fans, we have spent watching the team basically be the whipping boy of the Detroit Red Wings. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the Red Wings owned us for a long time. And
very long time.
And I remember being at the Winter Classic, the one at Wrigley Field.
Mm-hmm.
And Red Wings fans were everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And the Blackhawks lost. And, it was a tough game, but it was those Red Wings fans just were so confident. There was no point where they thought that they were going to lose. And
why would they feel like they were going to lose?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that the Packers have over the Bears. That's
what I said.
Why in the world would they think they would lose? And you're right. And I remember that series is my in-laws were in town, and we all sat in the basement and watched Game 3 of that series. And the Blackhawks were obviously a very good team, and they just played like crap the first 3 games of that series. And I just remember them being like, yeah, your team is not very good. And just the fire in my eyes. Like I just smoke coming out of my ears. I turned into some sort of angry dragon. I was so mad. And
I picture your face like tomato red, looking like John Leckie.
And they left. And they were there for the first 3 games of the series. Then they left, and the Blackhawks come back and win. And I'm just, why are they not here? Why are they not here for this?
Did you call them? Did you send them a message?
Of course. And I sent them pictures from the parade. I sent them everything because I hold a grudge.
Of course. I mean, when you are owned that long by one team, of course you're going to hold a grudge. I mean, it's only natural. Do you want to hear some numbers about that rivalry for a while? I have something that is not very pretty to share, and that is through the 90s through the 2000s, 2 decades, the Blackhawks went 49, 77, and 12. So think about how many losses that is over 2 decades. You lost 77 games in regulation to them, and then 12 games in overtime. So there you have a grand total of 89 losses in 2 decades against just 49 wins.
Yeah, that's not a good number. Good ratio at all.
Not at all. And you mentioned all the Red Wings fans at the Winter Classic. Now, in the dark ages, in the mid-2000s, I'd say, well, really the dark ages from the late 90s through the mid-2000s, because the mid-90s is when they kind of started selling things off after they had a really good run in the early 90s. But, I mean, you remember it. The games weren't on TV. People weren't going to the games, and the teams were awful. The only time people came to the United Center is when Detroit came to town. They were all Red Wings fans. I mean, you remember when Nashville did the keep the red out thing, or how, Blackhawks fans traveled really well to St. Louis for so many years? No, that was basically the United Center when the Red Wings came to town. And they turned it into the Joe Louis Arena, basically.
Yep, Joe Louis Light.
And for being a Blackhawks fan, knowing that it wasn't even a rivalry in my childhood. It was just one superior team and the irrelevant whipping boy. That's what it was. There was no rivalry at that point.
Yeah, I just remember, when the Blackhawks were turning the corner. And I lived through the same thing with the Bulls and the Detroit Pistons. And if you weren't old enough to remember that, or not you personally, but anybody listening, not old enough to remember that or don't understand that, you can watch The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, and kind of relive it. When you turn that corner, it's like the world is weight's lifted off your shoulder, and I can't wait to have that over Green Bay again when, finally when we get Russell Wilson and are able to beat Aaron Rodgers.
Oh boy, somebody stop this man. Somebody stop he's right now in a marinara shower. Someone turn off the hose.
Right now I'm doing the Chris Farley dance, talking about the van down by the river.
Oh boy. This is bad. This is real bad. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, remember the Cubs and Cardinals? 2015? Yeah. I mean, that basically this Game 7 was like that NLDS a few years prior. And, the other thing, too, about, just everything that happened up to that point is even when the Blackhawks won in 2010, I still think it's fair to say that the hockey world still saw the Red Wings as the superior in the rivalry. I mean, it kind of felt like, 1 year the Blackhawks won a cup. They still haven't beaten the Detroit Red Wings in the playoffs in over a decade. And, the Red Wings are still contending every year while the Blackhawks have just started contending again. It really felt like that Game 7 was the turning point. Because if you look, the Blackhawks have played very well against the Red Wings since then. And the Red Wings have not won a playoff series since 2013. So that was really a big turning point. And look, I'm not here to just, rip on the Red Wings. I've always had tremendous respect for the Red Wings. For so many years, they were the model franchise in hockey. But when you have been a fan of a team that had been owned by one franchise for so long, you relish in the changing of the guard. And Brent Seabrook made that happen. And not only that, he made that happen in a game where the Blackhawks should have won in regulation. That no goal was one of the worst, if not the worst, calls I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that, the crazy thing about that whole thing is that was not the only shining moment for Brent Seabrook. He scored multiple overtime winners. In fact, that year, it's easy to overlook that Game 4 goal he had in the Cup Finals. If he doesn't score that and they lose, they're down 3-1 in the Cup Finals. You might be able to come back 3-1 once, but to do it twice, I don't think they would have done it twice.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a lot of big moments there. The overtime winner against Calgary in was that 2009?
Yeah, the 5-0 comeback. Yep.
He had the overtime winner in the Stanley Cup final in 2013.
The one against Nashville in 2015, triple overtime.
Yep. Big. He came up big in big moments.
And he was a great leader. Remember when he went over to Taze when he was in the penalty box?
Yeah.
Against Detroit and tried to calm him down?
Yep.
And you listen to what Duncan Keith has to say about him. He can't say enough great things. You want to talk about a real duo bromance in sports? Look at Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook.
Yep. Absolutely. That's it's such an iconic pair. Done so many great things in there. I mean, how many defensive pairings have done what they've done in hockey?
Oh man,
they've accomplished everything that you can accomplish as a pair.
I mean, what would be left? He got Stanley Cup. Duncan Keith has won Norris trophies. They've both scored big game-winning goals. I mean, you look at the game-winning goals of Brent Seabrook. You look at the Conn Smythe trophy that Duncan Keith got. Heck, in that first-round series against Nashville in 2015, they both scored multiple overtime, as in multiple overtimes, not multiple goals. But it was, I think, double overtime in Game 1 and triple overtime when Seabrook scored. So, yeah, I mean, they've done pretty much everything together. There's nothing left for that duo to prove.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. And honestly, it's the move helps the Blackhawks so much. I mean, obviously you look at salary cap ramifications. The Blackhawks now with Seabrook being on long-term IR, Andrew Shaw being on long-term IR, and Zach Smith, who I completely forgot about as a human being.
I forgot he was on the roster, honestly.
Yeah, so did I until I was reading this. Between the three of them being on long-term IR, you have $23 million in cap space.
That's a lot, and we're not used to saying that.
Yeah, I know. When was the last time we had that much excess cap space? So you have the salary cap relief because his contract now, he's going to have to get paid for those years, but his money's not going to be counting against the salary cap. But also, the Blackhawks can now protect one more player in the expansion draft. They don't have to protect him. So that's
that I didn't actually see. So that's interesting.
Yeah, so they don't have to protect him. They were going to have to. If he hadn't retired, they would have to protect him because he was a player under contract with a no movement clause. They would have had to protect him. So as a player that's essentially retired on long-term IR, like an injury, they don't have to protect him. So that's big news for the Blackhawks. So that's, so now we'll be able to have a little more flexibility when it comes time for the Kraken to steal a player.
Yeah, right. They just come in with their tentacle and just grab him. And you just see the player just flailing his arms and legs.
Yeah, so it's gonna be fun when the expansion draft happens. Talking about who the Blackhawks can protect and shrewd moves because the Golden Showers really did a good job when their expansion draft and getting a really good goalie and making a splash right off the bat.
That was a model of how to do it. If you're an expansion team, the Golden Knights were the model of how to put a team together. I got to give them so much credit. That was incredible. I mean, right off the bat, that organization had an actual talented Stanley Cup final bound NHL roster and a good farm system. I mean, they had everything put together right off the bat. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it started with getting a top-notch goalie coming over with the expansion draft.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. And a goalie that has won Stanley Cups.
Yeah, and that was just huge for the franchise. So you saw them, pick up some really, really great players and really turn that franchise from absolutely nothing to, a contender, in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. Really, really, really amazing, honestly.
Who did they take from the Blackhawks? Was it Van Riemsdyk?
Wasn't it Kruger? Wasn't it Marcus Kruger?
I thought they traded Kruger.
Maybe. Yeah, I think they did take Van Riemsdyk. They might have traded Kruger to them.
Yeah, I thought they traded Kruger. But yeah, I think they drafted Van Riemsdyk. And then they traded Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
Yeah. That's right. Yep. TVR.
Yeah, so it was this was big. This is very big for the Blackhawks for Seabrook to retire. And you knew it was going to happen. Eventually you were going to see him retire, but just having this happen really is going to be, I think, a big help for the Blackhawks organization.
Yeah, and obviously it's not going to be immediate because it's not like you're going to go out and spend on somebody mid-season, but going forward, this is going to be something good to have. And, the question is what do you do this season? Like, you're not going to spend, obviously, but where you're at, do you make trades? Do you try to acquire somebody in a trade? Or do you just kind of stay course?
I mean, you're right now, you're having a feel-good story, feel-good year, but I mean, it's gonna, I guess, depend on. I mean, we've got a month before the trade deadline, a little over. Let's see, when is the trade deadline? NHL trade. I thought it was mid-April. April 12th.
So a little over a month.
Yeah, so we've got a little over a month. I think it's going to depend on what do we look like after this current stand. Where are we in the standings? What's the word on Jonathan Taves? What's the word on Kirby Dach? Because if Taves comes back and Kirby Dach comes back, and suddenly you're like, oh, hey, this team is still hanging around, and we get Dach and Taves back, then suddenly you're like, okay, well, maybe we could make a push. But if those two guys aren't back, or they fall off in the standings, why are you going to make a midseason move unless it's a move where it's going to bring back a player that has multiple years left on their contract and can help them next year or the year after. Like a Jack Eichel.
I don't know. Me personally, I don't think they're going to do anything big. Or anything really notable. I think it's going to be small moves. I don't see anything big coming. I do believe that even though they're playing better than expected, the outlook is still towards the future. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I don't see them making a big splash, like I said, unless it's something that can help them out going forward.
Right. Right.
And I
Not
don't know
rental.
how. Yeah, they're not going for a rental. I don't know why they would make any sort of rental trade. You've got a lot of young players. I would be shocked if they make any moves. I think you're going to see either stand pat or some very minor moves.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect anything. Wouldn't expect anything that would make you say, why are we doing this now? I mean, never underestimate Stan Bowman, but, if you're going to go out and get a rental, I just think that would be a huge waste. A huge waste. I mean, I know we're going to get into the series against Tampa, and I think this series, what it tells you about this team is that they can compete. They can stay with you. But reality check, they're not Stanley Cup contenders.
No, they're not. I mean, I think you're right. This 3-game stand against Tampa, shows that sure they can hang around and they can steal a game here and there, but they're not in the same league. It ultimately came down to out of 6 possible points, Tampa wound up with 5. We wound up with 3 and played some pretty good hockey. Maybe things would have been a little different had a certain puck slowed down like a tiny bit.
You know what's crazy, Sean? That loss was far and away their best game. If you just look at what happened, that was the best game they played.
It was a good game.
I mean, they were frustrating the Lightning. You could see it. And then the next night, the Lightning just absolutely outplayed and dominated, but Malcolm Subban just stood on his head, and they got that win.
Yeah, and there's been plenty of stretches in these games where you can just see how much better Tampa is than the Blackhawks. And
oh yeah, look at the way they moved the puck.
And just
so much of that,
and kept the puck in the offensive zone and just attacked. And you were just like, come on! Like there was the one sequence in the game they won, and you were like, how the hell did they not score? And the Blackhawks finally were able to ice the puck. They couldn't make a change or anything, but it gave them a breather for a second. It's like, there was such constant pressure, and you could see just the blood in the water where the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're just putting the pressure on, and the Blackhawks don't have that killer instinct or even the ability to put the pressure on like that. Sure, they've put together a nice season, but it's been a lot of just scrappy hockey and fighting it out and some luck in there, but it just being up against the Tampa team. But ultimately, I mean, I said I would be happy if they walked away with 3 points out of that, and I'd be very happy. And that's what they got.
Did. Mm-hmm. They did. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you look at today's game, we're recording on Sunday. It was like the tale of two halves. I mean, when they were up 3-0, I was thinking in my mind, holy shit, 5 out of 6 points? Wouldn't that be great? But I'll tell you, man, the second they scored their first goal, I just said, uh-oh, here it comes. And sure enough, with a blink of an eye, it was tied. And then they took the lead. And then it ended up being, 6-3 final? Like 6 unanswered goals?
Yep, 6 unanswered, and that's how quickly they can do it. They erased that lead pretty damn quick.
Yeah, and you know what? Today's game kind of felt like, I don't want to say they weren't trying, but it felt like Tampa Bay was just kind of relaxing a little bit, thinking, okay, it's Sunday, it's getaway. But then when they were down 3-0, they're like, okay, let's not do this. And then they turned on the heat. Now, Lankinen should have had a few of those early goals. But even if he didn't get those, I think the way that Tampa played in the second half of that game, they probably would have come back and won anyways.
Yeah, I just, this was not a good game for Lankinen, and
probably the worst as a Blackhawk, I would think. Or one of the worst.
I would say the worst. So it's going to be interesting to see how they split the games now, because you've seen Subban have a really good game. Is Lankinen, is this where the wheels come off, or is this just a bad game that you chalk it up and he has a bounce back game?
Well, I hope he can bounce back. I think he could use it as a learning experience. I mean, when you face a lineup like that as a rookie, it's not easy. And even on some of those goals he should have had, you look at some of the stuff that Tampa Bay does, not only the way they move the puck, but the way they're able to get out in front of the net and the way they're perfectly positioned for rebounds. And that's the thing, is when you're giving up rebounds to a team like Tampa Bay, that is a death sentence, because they are always in the right place at the right time. So I think having that kind of game against a great team like Tampa can be used as a great learning experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Subban gave up some juicy rebounds, but that's kind of been the thing, is turnovers and rebounds. The Blackhawks, they, if I'm not mistaken, had the lead in every single one of these games, correct?
They were up 2-0. Then they took the lead and won, and then they were up 3-0. Yes.
And every time blew the lead. I think that's something that as a young team they need to work on, is just building off that lead and keeping the pressure going. I mean, it's a tough sled against a team as good as Tampa, but
I do stand corrected. They never had the lead in game on Friday, because they were down 2-0 in that game. So
okay.
The first game and the third game they had leads. The two that they lost.
Yeah. So that's going to be a learning experience, is being able to build on leads and maintaining leads. But you have to be proud of staying competitive in a series against a team that good,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So we got 2 games versus the Stars this week?
Yeah, and even though that's not as big of a matchup as it might have been, the Stars are struggling. It's still a big game.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's on the road and they can score, so gotta take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas is not very good, but those are the games you got to win. Because then you got Florida after that, and Florida's the team that's ahead of you in the standings. You look at a team where you split a series against Tampa, but then when it comes down to the points, they came out with 5, and padded their lead in the division, and whereas the Blackhawks, they got 3. You gotta pad those against Dallas, and the Dallases, the Nashvilles, the Detroits that are at the bottom of your division. You got to beat those teams and to stay competitive with Carolina and Florida and Tampa.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's funny. You look in the Blackhawks have the 9th most points in the league. I mean, sure, they've got a few more games in hand than some of the other teams, but that's impressive.
It is. I mean, it's better than we all thought, but I just wonder how the rest of this stretch is going to bode for them. Look, let's say you get 3 points in Dallas. You take that. Boy, that trip to Florida is going to be tough because you're playing them in Florida. And then you got to beat Tampa Bay again in their own arena.
Yeah.
Those are going to be the hardest games, because at least with this weekend, you were at home. Even though the crowd's not there, you were still at home. So, you're going on the road for those games in Florida. That's going to be tough.
Yeah. So we'll see where we're at. I mean, it's good to get that stretch out of the way before the trade deadline. It's sort of gauge where you are, because nothing's more frustrating than feeling like, oh, you're in it and you can make a move and try to compete, make a move, and then have a big series like this where you get slapped back to reality, and you're like, well, damn it, we just made a big trade for naught. Having a big stretch like this before the trade deadline, you can really evaluate, hey, you know what? We were able to compete against Tampa both at home and on the road. We could hang with Florida. We beat Dallas. And suddenly you're like, okay, we feel confident now that maybe we can make a trade to kind of push for the being able to go deep in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how the rest of these next couple of games go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. At least I could say I tune in and, I could say I'm entertained for the most part. It's not always pretty, but I'm invested. I look forward to watching games. That's always good, right? I mean,
right. But the one other thing I wanted to talk about with the Blackhawks, and we've touched on it a bunch, Jonathan Toews. I don't know if you saw Rick Morrissey's article in the Sun-Times the other day. I think maybe Thursday or Friday.
No, I did not.
Essentially, he was talking out of both sides of his mouth, saying, we don't have a right to know what's wrong with Jonathan Toews, but we should also know because we're fans and we have the right to know. And that's, I don't know, it just sort of sets me off. I was talking with a friend of mine today, when the book comes out about Jonathan Toews 10 years after he retires, 5 years after he retires, yeah, you know what? It'll be interesting to know what the heck happened and what was going on through all this. Just out of curiosity point. But right now, I don't care. I don't really care. I just want to know, is the guy okay? Is the guy, as a human being, is he okay? Yeah, I think I summed it up with I just want the thumbs up. Yeah, I'm going to be okay. Or I don't know if I'm going to be okay. Say your prayers for me or whatever.
Sure.
That's all I care about. I don't really, with being out this long and with no answers, you just worry about the guy as a human being.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where you say, we want to know because we care about you. It's, we're not trying to be too nosy. And at the end of the day, we got to respect his privacy. I get that. We just worry naturally because we've grown very attached to Jonathan Toews. He's done a lot of good in the community. He's done so much for the fans of Chicago. He's one of the most important athletes of this generation, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been so important to this team. And, his leadership with this young club could be really crucial. And, he's just MIA and there's no word from him. And, the NHL has notoriously been tight-lipped about injuries, but this one just has a bad feeling about it.
Yeah, especially when you don't know anything. When they're so secretive and he's not even practicing around the team, it makes you worry a lot.
Yeah, there's no statuses, nobody has any updates. You just it makes you worried. And no, as a fan, we don't have a right to know what's going on with him. It's none of our business. Sure, we missed seeing the guy play, and we all have paid money to watch him play, and he's a key cog in 3 Stanley Cups, but at the end of the day, the guy's a human being. It's going through something right now.
Yeah, it's got to be really tough. I can only imagine.
Yeah. And So I don't know. That article set me off a little bit because, the title of the article is "No, we don't have a right to know what's wrong with Jonathan Taves, but ...
Yeah, I can see why I could see why you wouldn't like that type of headline. I don't read the Sun-Times, so I did not see it, but yeah. Yeah.
It just was a little cringy. It just sort of set me off a little bit. Of course, everybody's curious and would like to know, but I'm fine never knowing. I'm just, like I said, I just want to make sure the guy is okay.
For sure.
I want to move on a little bit to the Bears. And let me get my meatball sauce heated up here.
Oh boy, here we go.
There's so many rumors right now being kicked around about Russell Wilson to the Bears. And listen, I'm trying to quell the meatball in me that's just going, Russell Wilson, rah, rah, rah. But I'm trying to be grounded in this and say, hey, listen, very unlikely that this ever happens. So let's just keep this into the realm of reality. But it's exciting to think the possibility of getting Russell Wilson.
It is, and there's a lot of people out there talking about the situation saying it's very unlikely, but there's that tiny little bit of hope that maybe something can happen. Look, I have no doubt that the Bears are going to make a call to Seattle, or they've been making calls, and they're trying to gauge the situation. And I'm sure that Seattle is not just going to hang up the phone, that they are going to at least listen. That's what you do. That's what GMs, that's what front offices do. You call and you listen. And there are reasons, as some people pointed out, where maybe Russell Wilson is a little frustrated with Seattle. Their defense has been bad despite them being playoff contenders, and Pete Carroll seems to want to make Russell Wilson into a game manager and a ground pound type coach instead of using the talents of Russell Wilson, who is a top 5 quarterback in this game. I can see why there would be some frustration for Russell Wilson, even if it's not to the severity of Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. I mean, nothing is there. But I think at the end of the day, if they don't want to deal Russell Wilson, the Seahawks, he'll show up to camp and he'll play for the Seahawks next year. I don't see him, being in a holdout or, bad blood situation to the point where he doesn't want to play for them like Wilson or like Watson and the Texans. That's kind of where I see it.
Yeah, I think the likelihood of Russell Wilson winding up back in Seattle is a lot higher than Deshaun Watson going back to Houston.
Right.
But that when Russell Wilson's people came out and said that he would accept the trade to, was it the Cowboys, Raiders, Saints, and Bears?
Mm-hmm.
You go through those. The Saints, it's not going to happen. That team is in financial peril. There's no way that they could add a Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it's unthinkable. Unless they sell the Superdome and they play. Where did they used to play? Didn't they play outdoors for a little while?
I don't remember.
Oh, no, they played outdoors, I think, during the hurricane when they were repairing the dome.
Yeah.
I just don't remember where it was.
So the Saints, they're out. The Raiders have publicly come out and said that they're sticking with Derek Carr. And I believe them. I don't think they're gonna put in the capital to try to bring in Russell Wilson as much as I think John Gruden would love that. I think they're in a position at least where they have a serviceable quarterback. As opposed to the Bears. The Cowboys they're going to wind up with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I don't see any other way.
So, really, of the teams that he's willing to take a trade to, it's the Bears. And I started looking at we're starting to see the puzzle pieces come together a little bit. So I was looking again at the quarterback situation, and the Bills are set. The Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets are all up in the air. Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers are set. Broncos are up in the air. Steelers, Ravens, Browns, Bengals are all set. Titans, Colts are set. I'm going to put Jaguars in there as set just because they're taking quarterback number one.
Exactly.
I think the Giants are going to stand pat. Cowboys, once they get to Dak Prescott, are set. Rams, Cardinals are set. Green Bay, Vikings, Lions set. Buccaneers and Falcons are set. So that leaves Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, Broncos, Texans, Washington football team, Eagles, Seahawks, 49ers, Bears, Saints, and Panthers as teams in quarterback flux. Okay, that's 12 teams.
Mm-hmm.
But some of those teams have quarterbacks that I put in the flux. So the Seahawks, the Dolphins, and the Texans, and the Jets have quarterbacks. And the Panthers have a quarterback. So I'm going to throw those into the fold. Same with the Eagles. So you've got, to fill those 12 spots, you've got Tua, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Alex Smith, Jalen Hurts, Jimmy G, Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, and Fitzmagic. So you have 15 quarterbacks to fit 12 spots. So
I mean, it's
the odds start coming into the Bears of there are options. There's less options for the Seahawks in moving Russell Wilson than there are for the Bears to get a better quarterback than Nick Foles.
yeah. You would think and hope.
And so I kind of put, I think the obvious choice is if the Texans move Deshaun Watson, the Dolphins seem like the most likely landing spot because they can trade a starting quarterback and a bunch of picks.
Yeah, I mean, they got a nice group of assets there that they can make a deal.
So, I put for the Dolphins either Tua or Watson. For the Patriots, I put the three names I threw in there as the starting quarterback for them. Bringing back Cam Newton, which I think is in the realm of possibility, but it's probably a little low. Alex Smith and Jimmy Garoppolo. The Jets, it's either they're going to keep Darnold, or I think Zach Wilson, the quarterback from BYU, that they'll take second in the draft. I think those are the two most likely. Broncos, I see it as probably they make the move for Teddy Bridgewater, or they draft. I have them as drafting either Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. The Texans, again, they either keep Watson or I think it winds up with Tua. The Eagles, I think they probably stick it out with Jalen Hurts to see what they have. They spent a first-round pick on him. Washington football team, I have Cam Newton and Teddy Bridgewater as the likely and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Seahawks, I have Russell Wilson or question mark. Because I think if they trade Russell Wilson, they probably go to a rebuild, right?
I would think.
Because
I would think so.
Shed that
not like they don't have a defense to carry them.
Yeah, I mean, here's why I think Seattle might, because they'll get a bunch of things, and then they just go, you know what, let's go into a rebuild. Our defense is terrible, and we can shed salary, start this rebuild by trading Russell Wilson, and get our cap situation under control, and start over. That's the reason I think this becomes a reality, because you start doing the math here and see what Seattle can do. And then you look at Seattle's division. The Rams are really good. The Cardinals got better. And the 49ers are going to come back healthy. And when they're healthy, that running game is really good. And if they can upgrade their quarterback, that's a tough situation for Seattle, because they're then probably the third or fourth worst team in that division.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the 49ers, I have Jimmy Garoppolo, Teddy Bridgewater, or a draft pick. And then I think Jameis Winston winds up with the Saints, and I think Trey Lance winds up with the Panthers. So then that leaves the Bears with Russell Wilson, Alex Smith, Sam Darnold, Mac Jones, or I'm still going to leave Jameis Winston in there, even though I think it's a long shot. So, I mean, all of those quarterbacks, I think, put you in a better spot than Nick Foles.
I think so, yes. At this point, the last things that we want right now is Mitch Trubisky starting or Nick Foles starting. If Nick Foles is our backup, fine, but you don't want him starting week 1.
No, you don't. He just looked scared out there last year.
Yeah, not good.
The offense didn't, other than that one half of football against the Falcons, that just did not click. And
it was ugly. I mean, he couldn't move. Everything was out of sync. And Allen Robinson even talked in a recent interview about playing with 2 quarterbacks and just how out of whack things could look. I mean, when Nick Foles made his last start against Minnesota, that was as bad as it gets. I mean, that was just so brutal to watch. And you don't want that again, because I don't think next year something is going to magically turn on. With him, I just don't see it. I think I'd only want to see Nick Foles play under center if he has to come in as a backup. And we don't want to see him have to come in as a backup. But if he is the backup, I can live with that.
Yeah. And so I just, the math is adding up where a trade of Russell Wilson could make sense. If you're Seattle, you go, man, this could be a really tough division. Our defense is bad. Our offense put up some great numbers last year, but can we compete with the Rams? Can we compete with, this division? And we would still have to play Green Bay. We'd still have to play the Bucks. Can we compete for a Super Bowl, or should we just boom, hit reset on this and jumpstart that rebuild by all the assets that you're going to get for Russell Wilson and the cap relief you're going to get from him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, right there, you'd have more draft picks, you'd have more cap, and then maybe you could say, all right, we just want to start from scratch. I mean, they got a lot of talent on offense outside Russell Wilson. You look at DK Metcalf, that guy's good too. But, I mean, you don't have a good enough team to win a Super Bowl. You have a good enough team to make the playoffs, but that defense is not getting you anywhere. And you saw them. They were one and done in the playoffs.
Yeah, and who's to say that you can't, if you're the Seahawks, then you can't, then use some of that draft capital and then trade for like a Sam Darnold who who, might fit the style of offense that you're trying to run, and then use the rest of you could pick him up for pennies on the dollar, and then use that draft capital to rebuild your defense. And suddenly you're like, okay, well, we're not competing for a Super Bowl, but we're still a team that's not a laughing stock by any stretch.
Right.
And for the Bears, you still have this defense in place. And adding a real quarterback can change everything. We'll talk about the offensive line in a minute, but you give Russell Wilson a solid run game, and then an offense that focuses on him. He's looking for something like Patrick Mahomes has in Kansas City, where all the offense goes through him, and you have a quarterback that is able to make the throws and is athletic enough to move the pocket. Like the ideal guy that Matt Nagy described that he wants, outside of Patrick Mahomes, it sounds like it's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it does.
So the math starts to add up. And I don't want to put the cart before the horse, and I don't want to get all my hopes up, but because there's still a lot of discussion that needs to be had, but it just sort of makes sense that the Bears are a team he would go to. And it's part of the reason that the Bears walked away from the Carson Wentz, because he wanted to go to Indianapolis. And you're like, well, do we want to trade for a guy that doesn't necessarily want to come here? Where Russell Wilson's like, yeah, I want to go there. And all the other options he said are sort of out of the picture. And you have a team where you're like, maybe the way that they're built, that we could sort of pry them away. It gives me some hope. And especially when you're starting to see national media go, I think this could happen.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get too much hope, but like I said, I'm seeing the slight window open, because you listen to radio shows, you listen to podcasts, you look at guys on TV, they're all saying don't fully rule this out. And again, I'm not trying to spread he's coming here, but it's not.
Oh, I am. He's coming here. No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, oh boy, someone really needs to turn off the meatball sauce.
Yeah, no, it's got me excited because I think there is some sense of reality in this. The one thing that does concern me is so many people are saying, sources are saying that the Bears are pushing for Russell Wilson. You can knock the guy for a lot of things, but Ryan Pace, when has there been a leak in that front office?
Not often.
Everything they've done was the Khalil Mack trade on anybody's radar. Was trading up for Mitchell Trubisky on anybody's radar. The only hint at all of the Allen Robinson deal was when he changed his profile picture to him wearing Cubs gear. Like, it has been pretty top secret as far as Ryan Pace's front office goes. So where is that information coming from that the Bears are pushing hard for Russell Wilson? Because a lot of those same outlets were saying the Bears are pushing hard for Deshaun Watson. So is it just the narrative that they're pushing because they know the Bears need a quarterback and those two guys could be available? Or is there actual information they have?
I don't know. It makes you think. It really does. I just would love to wake up one day and see, like the Khalil Mack trade. When that happened, I just woke up and I saw it on my phone. And I had to do a double take and make sure I wasn't dreaming. That's what I would love to happen in this situation.
Yeah, it just, anything could happen. So, but I just don't know where these rumors are coming from, unless they're coming from the Seattle side or the agent side.
Which could be, that could happen.
Very
that
much
could
they could happen, but they're not coming from the Bears camp.
No, it's not.
So I'm very cautious when it comes to those rumors because the Blackhawks have been so tight-lipped about it going forward. But then it begs the question was, if the Bears, let's just say the Bears are able to trade for Russell Wilson, what number does he wear?
Oh, gee. I haven't even thought about that. You've clearly thought about this.
Oh, I've thought about it.
Oh, boy. I don't know. What does he wear?
So Russell Wilson wears the number 3.
Okay.
All right. That's a retired number with the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
But it's a retired number for a guy that played for the Bears in the 30s. Bronco Nagurski.
Are you suggesting they unretire Bronco Nagurski?
I am absolutely saying you unretire Bronco Nagurski's number.
I am going to fling you into Lake Michigan with a trebuchet. I'm going to fling you so far, you're going to end up in Mackinac Island.
All right. All right. You're not. The Bears retired numbers here. Is Bronco Nagurski played for the Bears from 1930 to 1937. Looking at the list of retired numbers, because the Bears have a lot of retired numbers. They retired number 7 for George Halas. If you unretire numbers, I say you have to unretire George Halas's first, based solely on the fact that otherwise it looks like you're up to a fast one. If you unretire your own family's number first, then it goes, all right, well then we're a little more okay with this. Number 34 never gets unretired. That one is cemented. Gale Sayers.
You better not.
No. Walter Payton's number stays retired forever. That one is cemented, locked.
Yes.
Number 34, that one, you can't unretire that. Number 40, Gale Sayers. That one stays retired. Number 51, Dick Butkus. That stays retired. Number 5, George McAfee. You can unretire that one. Willie Gallimore, I think you keep that one retired. People are going to be mad about this one. I think you can unretire Brian Piccolo.
No.
Sid Luckman, you keep retired. Number 42.
Don't you dare take away the only quarterback that's retired.
No. Sid Luckman stays retired. 42. You keep that one retired. Number 56, Bill Hewitt. You can take that one back. You can unretire that one. Bill George, you keep retired. Clyde Turner, you keep retired. Red Grange, you keep retired. So you've added a few numbers that you can go back to. There's guys. Red Grange is, that's a Illinois icon, and he's a storied player. There's a section of Canton about him. Bronco Nagurski has been dead for 35, 40 years. He played before my dad was born. Nobody knows. You find video of him that doesn't look like a cart. There's nothing there. It's just he's a guy. He's a guy that you don't know anymore. Unless you're like a history nerd, you know.
I am recalibrating the trebuchet to launch you into Canada.
I mean, because they're not retiring any more numbers for the Bears. They've already made that. So, you know,
Have they said that really?
yeah, because they have so many numbers retired. You're gonna run out of numbers. They said they're not retiring more numbers. It's kind of like Dallas. Dallas isn't retiring any more numbers. They do the Ring of Honor or whatever.
So you're not going to retire Brian Urlacher?
No, so you didn't retire, Mike Singletary. You didn't retire any of the 85 Bears except for Walter Payton. None of the 85 Bears are.
Huh? So no Richard Dent, no Mike Singletary.
They're not retired. They didn't retire those numbers. So, and then Brian Urlacher is not. His number's not retired. So, you go. They didn't retire. Charles Tillman. Like these. So you're like, okay, these are guys in our memory banks that were great players that they're not retiring. But then we're going to keep Bronco Nagurski. And I'm not saying he's not a great player. It's just nobody has a frame of reference to it. You know? Like
5, 4, 3, 2, thong.
If Russell Wilson was like, I'm coming to the Bears, but you got to unretire Bronco Nagurski's number, and he's going to bring you a Super Bowl.
Okay, then I'd do it, but I'd still fling you into Lake Michigan.
Are you that tied to Bronco? I own a Bronco Nagurski jersey. Like, I have nothing against.
How dare you?
It is nothing against Bronco.
You do not deserve that jersey. You scum.
I'm not knocking Bronco Nagurski. No, I'm not saying he's wasn't a great player. I'm just saying is that like you go to find 20 people wearing Bears gear on the street and ask them what number Bronco Nagurski wore.
I'm going to clone myself 10 million times, and each clone is getting a Bronco Nagurski jersey just so you can suck it.
So I'm okay with it. I will live to get an actual real quarterback that'll go down in history as the greatest Bears quarterback ever. I'm willing for him to share a number with Bronco Nagurski. And you know what? I caveat it. I'm not saying that any old Joe Schmo can have number 3 after Russell Wilson. I'm not saying that just any, your backup quarterback in 10 years can have number 3. I'm saying is you temporarily lift this ban, nobody being able to use it, for Russell Wilson. It's called the Russell Wilson clause.
No, it's called the launch Sean Hopman into Lake Michigan with a giant trebuchet clause to get Russell Wilson.
Okay, here we go. What if they were able to get a Patrick Mahomes and he was like, I want Bronco Nagurski's number. That's the only way I'll come to the Bears. Would you let him have Bronco Nagurski's number?
Yes, I would, but those are very dire circumstances. I just don't want to freely say, oh, let's unretire Bronco Nagurski's number.
I'm just saying is I'll live with it. I won't lose any sleep over if they give Russell Wilson Bronco Nagurski's number.
Yeah, because you'll be sleeping with the fishes.
You know what? And I will be in there with my Super Bowl trophy, hugging it and putting meatball sauce on it.
You're like blub 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 as you hold
I've got one of those like little clips that holds your nose closed so the water doesn't go in it, and floaties, and I've got one of those swimming caps, and I've got in an inner tube, like one of those blow up inner tubes, my Marty Havlat crock pot floating in the water, and I'm ladling sauce on the Super Bowl trophy.
You know what? That might be worth seeing then. absolutely worth it.
Hey, so I'm okay if you say, you know what, we're gonna let Russ have this number for a bit. I think Bronco Nagurski's family, does he even have a family anymore? Is his line down? When was the last time you heard the name Nagurski? Anybody walking around with the last name Nagurski?
The line from The Simpsons. Do you remember the episode where they all go to the Super Bowl and they have like the fake tickets that are printed on crackers?
Yes.
One of my favorite lines from that episode is they're at Moe's and they're watching the Super Bowl like bye week program where all the players are like partying, and Moe goes, bye weeks. Bronco Nagurski didn't get no bye weeks and now he's dead. Well, maybe they're a good thing.
Bronco Nagurski.
I mean, one of the best football names ever, right?
He was Canadian.
Now that I didn't know.
He was from Rainy River, Ontario, Canada.
Isn't there like I think I saw him in like a tape ad, like, you know, like regular tape, you know, where you tape something and like the tape was strong and like it's like him in a wrestler uniform, because I believe he was a boxer or a wrestler as well, wasn't he?
I thought he was a wrestler.
One of the two. And it's a picture of him trying to break the tape and he can't do it. It's like, oh, it's so strong, he can't even break it, and it's Bronco Nagurski. Did you also ever hear the story, allegedly, where he went into the Wrigley Field brick so hard that he, like, dented it?
I did hear that. I don't know if it's true, but I have heard that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many humans can break a brick wall like that, but it is a fun story, I guess.
Is Bronco Nagurski and Dave Winfield were named by Sports Illustrated as two of the four greatest athletes in Minnesota state history.
And you want to unretire his number.
Yeah, after he retired from the Bears, he became a professional wrestler.
Oh, there you go.
He was discovered by the University of Minnesota head coach who saw him plowing a field.
Okay, then. See? Interesting guy, Bronco Nagurski.
Yeah. He was born... You want to maintain retiring of a number of a guy born in 1908. That's back when they still said turlet.
Hey, 1908. We all know who won the World Series that year.
So, is there anybody... Nobody born in 1908 is still alive. They're all dead. Like, everybody from his generation is dead. No one's going to be upset about Bronco Nagurski's number getting unretired for Russell Wilson. Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
So now we get to the elephant in the room. Allen Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think figuring out what happens with Russell Wilson sort of dictates what the heck happens with Allen Robinson, right?
I think a lot rides on it, yes. I mean, it's pretty clear that Allen Robinson wants to play with an actual quarterback and an actual offense, which I can't blame him. Can you? I can't.
I can't. Why in the world would he not want to? And he's got a choice now, probably. But the Bears have, we're recording this Sunday, the 7th. The Bears have until, I think, the 9th to franchise tag him. And honestly, the Bears are stupid if they don't franchise tag him.
This is the Bears, so don't underestimate them.
Correct. Now, here's the thing. The franchise tag essentially just says that, we dictate what happens to the guy. Allen Robinson is going to stomp his feet and pout and be mad about it because nobody wants the franchise tag. You want a long-term deal. You want to be able to know where you're going to live and what you're going to be doing and the team you want that stability and that the money that comes with it. But if you're the Bears, you have to franchise tag him. And essentially you're saying, all right, if we can't get this quarterback situation figured out, well, then we'll trade Allen Robinson. We just know that he's ours because what's the what is it, 2 first-round picks if you sign somebody's franchise tag?
I don't know off the top of my head, but that sounds about right.
It's yeah, here we go. So franchise tag is if somebody else offers him more money, then and you have either the option to match it, or if you decline it, you get 2 first-round picks from the other franchise. So nobody's going to outsign him, but you could trade him for less than 2 first-round picks. So you can then dictate where he goes and what you get for him. And it gives the Bears opportunity, because if they say, listen, we're going to franchise tag him, and then we're going to be able to then say, hey, we got Russell Wilson. Do you want to stay now? Now let's talk long-term deal. But if the Bears are like, well, shit, you know what? We're going to end up with Ryan Fitzpatrick as our quarterback. There's no sense in paying Allen Robinson all this money. Let's take a step back and just try to rebuild this offense. I think then it makes sense to trade him for something, and then sign a lesser free agent wide receiver, and then use that draft pick to bolster your team. It just sort of gives you options, you know?
Right. I mean, I think it spells pretty clear what you do at the quarterback situation, what Allen Robinson would like to do. Give him a good quarterback, things are different. If not, well, there you go. I just think that the Bears are in a situation where they're going to have to find out something, what they're going to do. I don't think it's going to be instantaneous. I don't think we're going to find out soon, but I think they do want to get it done as soon as possible so they can figure all this out. I mean, if the Allen Robinson drama wasn't part of this, it might not be as urgent, but to me, it feels like it's a bit more urgent because of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, Allen Robinson has been a good trooper throughout all of this. His 3 years here, and now he has a right to be upset. He wants to play for a legitimate offense with a real quarterback. You look at who he's played under in his career, and it's been terrible quarterbacks. And he still put up great numbers. So give the guy a real quarterback and the opportunity to choose who he plays, or give the guy a good quarterback and sign him. You know, that's your options if you're the Bears. Like, what's the point if you're going to end up with Alex Smith as your quarterback? Then what's the point? You know, under your cap situation, paying Allen Robinson the franchise tag really hurts. It really puts you in a pickle, because you can't defer any of that money. You're paying it all right now. And that's going to kill the Bears' salary cap situation. Now, if they extend him, you can finagle a little bit to, to really give you some more flexibility in your cap. But if you don't sign him to an extension, that just goes out the window. But what leverage do you have to sign him to a contract if you can't tell him who your quarterback is?
The most important position on the field.
Yeah. So if you franchise tag him, that gives you until mid-July to get a deal done. But more realistically, it gives you until the draft probably, where then you're going to be, you have a good idea of who your quarterback is, and because the free agency period starts pretty soon. The legal tampering period starts a week from tomorrow. So March 15th is the legal tamper period. So you're going to see in the next like week and a half, 2 weeks, all the big name players be off the board. And you're going to see sort of how this league is shaping up, and you're going to, the Bears are going to have a better idea of who their quarterback is. If they end up signing Alex Smith, that sort of signals that, hey, they're not going to.
It's a bridge.
They're a bridge, and they're probably Allen Robinson is going to get traded. But if you let him just walk, you're going to get a compensatory pick, but that compensatory pick is going to be a third rounder next year. If you franchise tag him and you trade him, then maybe you can squeeze a first rounder out of it, but probably a second rounder. But those picks are this year.
Yeah, that's the thing.
What else? Matt Nagy said that Alex Bars is going to be put in the the rotation to win the starting right tackle spot, which sort of signals, I think, what everybody already knows is that Bobby Massey's going to get launched in the trebuchet right alongside of me.
Yeah, he probably will be. I mean, they just have to upgrade that position. There's no question about it.
He makes a lot of money, and he's not good, and he's been unhealthy. So why wouldn't you? Alex Bars, I don't think he's the answer over there, but as the swing guy, okay, I'm okay with that. I think you'd need to upgrade in the draft, but this draft has a lot of good tackles, so I think that's a good place to really start.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that there's a lot of good tackles in this draft, considering that's where the biggest needs are for the offensive line. If you get the interior line all healthy and then you upgrade at your tackle positions, all of a sudden your offensive line, I think, is looking pretty solid.
And here's the thing too, is I think you're going to see a big influx of offensive linemen that are cut because of the salary cap situation this year. Mm-hmm. Because I think teams feel like, all right, where can they shed? They're not going to shed the quarterback. They're not going to shed their edge rusher. They're not going to shed their number one wide receivers. They're going to shed the offensive linemen. And I think you're able to pick up guys even on short-term contracts to fill that hole. And here's the thing, is your offensive line played a whole lot better at the end of last year when you put in Sam Mustipher as your center. And
Mustafa.
So you saw, sure, I think he's got a lot of things to work on, like his physical strength. He got pushed around a little bit, but as far as the mental aspect of playing center in this league, he has that down. He looked like a veteran out there. And Cody Whitehair, who physically is strong enough to play that whole interior line, just never had the instincts, to play center. And the offensive line struggled when he played center. So I think that's a good fit. And it's looking like Cody Whitehair, or Whitey Coathair if you're a certain former Bear coach, is probably going to...
Is that what Wannstedt called him?
Yeah, he called him Whitey Coathair.
Okay, because that sounds like something Wannstedt would do.
He's like,
I didn't
Whitey
even know
coat
he
hair.
did that.
Whitey
I
coat
didn't
hair.
know he did that, but the second you said that, I'm like, oh God, that was Wani, wasn't it?
Absolutely Wani. But he's going to be, I'm sure, the left guard, and then James Daniels is going to be returning healthy. They're probably going to put him at right guard. I'm guessing Charles Leno stays. It's my guess. And then they upgrade the right tackle position. And suddenly you have a significantly better offensive line. Sure, is it going to be top 5 offensive line? No. But it's going to be middle of the road, a little bit above middle of the road. And I think that if you put in a good quarterback in this situation and a good scheme, suddenly it looks a whole lot better.
Absolutely. Like you said, not top dog, but it'll be good enough. It'll be good enough to, I mean, look at the end of last year. The line overall played a lot better, and that was with the 2 weaker tackles.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see an upgrade there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a free agent over on the right side. Because to be honest, starting tackles coming out of the draft, there's a learning curve. You throw guys over there and, they don't always click right away. You see it more click with the guards, but tackles don't always click, kind of like wide receivers. And so with his job on the line, I would be more likely to see a free agent on a prove it deal coming to the team rather than them drafting somebody in the first round.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the last thing I want to talk about with the Bears is, I think it was the same press conference. Matt Nagy was saying that he saw Darnell Mooney as a guy that could be Tyreek Hill or Deshaun Jackson. Now, listen, I like Darnell Mooney a lot, and I could see Deshaun Jackson. But has he watched Tyreek Hill? That guy has speed to burn and just causes so many mismatches on the NFL field that I don't know how you can compare Darnell Mooney to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a stretch right now, at least.
Like, I can see the Deshaun Jackson. I mean,
sure.
There was a time when that guy was a legit threat.
Oh, yeah.
But, and I think Darnell Mooney, that is not a knock being compared to Deshaun Jackson, because there was a time when he was a big-time threat. And I think Darnell Mooney could be that guy, but you need a quarterback that can get him the ball deep.
Yeah, and we saw what happened in the final few games of the regular season.
Yeah, and the thing is there's a quarterback that, would like to come to the Bears that has a really good deep ball.
We're talking about Mike Lennon, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Totes. And then I guess we can wrap this up talking a little bit of spring training baseball.
Sure, why not?
So I saw today, just sort of kind of funny, is that the Cubs traded Dwayne Underwood to the Pirates, and they DFA'd Carson Fulmer to make room for Dwayne Underwood. It's funny, those two guys, the Cubs and the White Sox were pretty high on a few years ago. And
wasn't what's his face, Carson Fulmer? Wasn't he like one of the? Wasn't he a first round pick for the White Sox?
He was a first round pick. I believe he was a top 10 pick.
That's right. Yeah.
And he was a bust.
Yeah, though I don't think the White Sox did him any favors by bringing him up from AAA or AA, wherever it was, to just rot in the bullpen. But that was when they were still running the old scheme, so hopefully they don't make that mistake again with any of the new guys.
Yeah, so he was the 8th overall pick in the 2015 draft. 8th overall pick.
Yeah, like you said, top 10.
Who else was in that draft?
What year was that again?
2015. So,
2015.
So the number 1 pick in that draft was Dansby Swanson.
Uh-huh.
Number 2 was Alex Bregman.
Okay.
3 was Brendan Rodgers.
Meh.
4, Dylan Tate. 5, Kyle Tucker. 6,
Okay.
Tyler J. 7, Andrew Benintendi. 8, Carson Fulmer. 9, Ian Happ.
I was gonna say, didn't Ian Happ go in that draft? Yeah.
He did. So the man, outside the first round, they're notable draft picks. Kyle Cody.
I mean, you mentioned Alex Bregman, Dansby Swanson, right at the very top. And Bregman, not Bregman.
Paul DeYoung.
Oh, I mean, he's pretty solid.
He's solid. He was a 4th rounder.
Wow, he was drafted that late. And again, the Cardinals seem to do that. Find gold anywhere.
Yeah, not a stellar draft, but some top heavy names. But yeah, Carson Fulmer was the 8th pick in the draft, and he just got DFA'd by the Pirates. And in that trade, the Cubs got a 20-year-old first baseman, Shendrick Apostel.
First of all, that name is awesome. Second of all, it's kind of nice that we get another young prospect. Now, he's away from the majors, 20 years old, but hey, you got a first base prospect down there.
Yeah, and I saw
it's kind of nice to have.
I saw some rumblings about it from Pirates fans who were upset about it because they seem to think that Shendrick Apostel is a guy that could be on the major league roster in 2 years, whereas they see Dwayne Underwood as a guy.
Well, remember, Dwayne Underwood came up with the Cubs. He made his major league debut in 2018. He made one start against the Dodgers. And then he pitched in 12 games in 2019 and last year 17 games. Career ERA of 5.2. And, early on, there was reason to believe that, maybe this guy could be something, but it just never really amounted here. Could he be something with the Pirates? I'm not really counting on it, but you never know. So I think this trade could be a potential win for the Cubs because, you have a potential promising prospect here versus Dwayne Underwood, who, I mean, even if he does become decent with the Pirates, you weren't really riding on him to play a major role. He was just kind of there at this point. Maybe if it was a few years ago, we'd think a little differently, but at this point, he's, like you say, he's just a guy.
Yeah, for the Cubs, he was they would have optioned him down, except he was out of options. So, you got something for a guy that you were just going to let go. So, essentially, it was a win for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got a guy, you got a 20-year-old prospect whose only professional baseball has been in the Dominican League, and so you take a chance on him. What does it cost you? You were going to get rid of Dwayne Underwood anyway. He doesn't fit into your future. And if he does do something okay with the Pirates, that's great. And he's going to get an opportunity probably with the Pirates because they don't have a good team. And he's probably going to be able to pitch every 5 days. So for them, they're like, well, we get a starting pitcher now, or a guy that can pitch regularly. We have an actual major league roster player on our team, and we'll give up a 20-year-old. So I think this is one of those trades where it's good for both sides. For Cubs, it is, you get a lottery ticket, and maybe it fizzles, but it cost you $1.
Yeah, you went to 7-Eleven, you went to the clerk who's got a cigarette in his mouth, and you bought a nice cheap ticket, and maybe it'll get you something.
And if nothing else, Underwood is going to be a guy that, pitches regularly for you in a year when you're going to be bad.
Exactly. They're not going anywhere. They could be the worst team in the National League. I mean, I don't know who in the National League right now is billed to be worse than them. I can't think of anybody.
No, unless the Orioles get moved to the realigned to the National League.
Yeah, and I don't see that happening. So,
not in March. And let's see, what else? Former Cub Jeremy Jeffress was cast off from the Nationals today in some weird situation.
Yeah, and I don't want to speculate anything, because there have been people that have been speculating. There's things that have come up. I won't speculate. I will say this, though. If we're talking from a baseball standpoint, look, last year he got the job done for the Cubs. There's no reason about it. He had an ERA under 2. He got the saves. He got the job done. But I will say this from a baseball perspective. You look at the peripherals, you look at the advanced stats, and you look at just how he got the outs. He threw in the low 90s. He got hit pretty hard, but the BABIP was very low, so those hard hit balls are outs, and he did not miss bats. So I think that there might be something more than this, but in terms of the Cubs not bringing him back from a baseball standpoint, I think there's a lot of room for regression there with him this year. Do I see the Cubs bringing him back? If there's issues going on that's not baseball related, I don't see them bringing him back. I just don't see it right now. You never know, but I don't see him coming back this year. And I hope everything is all right with him. I just know a lot of people are upset that he didn't come back. And, part of me does understand, but, I do point out the warnings of regression with him. But with the Nationals, I think it's pretty clear it's not necessarily baseball related. I just don't really want to speculate on what it is.
It's funny is I don't know if you saw the Bleacher Report article about it, but they said it was due to personnel reasons, and clearly people were not reading it correctly, and they kept thinking it was personal reasons. And so they were like, yeah, well, he's a bad teammate, clearly. And I was like, wait, where did I miss this? And then somebody pointed out that they're like, it said personnel, not personal. And I was like, well, that's funny. I mean, sure, maybe there is something going on, but I wouldn't have thought anything of it except for the fact that he had this weird tweet where he tweeted at an agent saying that he ruined his life. And then the agent tweeted out, he's like, I haven't been his agent since 2019.
Yeah, that's where I picked up some of the weirdness. I'm not on Twitter much, but somebody sent me that. And that's where I picked up that something is clearly going on. I don't know. I really don't know. It's very strange.
Yeah, I'm wondering what is going on, because that's odd. I mean, it's the way he was moved on from, and then the tweets, just those are a little weird. So based on that, I'm going to be very shocked if the Cubs are to sign him.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it. I think they're pretty set with what they have right now.
So, but hopefully the best for Jeremy Jeffress is I liked him as a Cub. So
yeah, certainly.
I hope for the best for him. What else do we got? There's a certain player who at one point dominated baseball. And this player had a showcase where both the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs were in attendance. And that is one Jonas Suspedus.
Mm-hmm. I know that's where you were going.
White Sox? I can see this.
Me too.
Because, sure, I think baseball has passed him and he's a shell of himself. But, I think at this point, if he is to play again, he's going to be a DH. And,
right. Yes, that's the thing.
And you're the White Sox, and you have a guy who is very young with very little experience that's penciled in as your DH. You have a Cuban pipeline with your organization. He's a Cuban player. And I just think that you at least kick the tires on him if you're the White Sox. If you're the Cubs, why in the world are you at his pro? Like, what's he going to do for you?
If there was a DH in the National League, I would say it's a completely different story. But right now, I don't see any fit for the Cubs. I mean, the outfield is pretty much set. You have your starting three. You have your bench guys. And it's not like he could play on the infield. So that's out the window. For the White Sox, with the Cuban connections, with family connections, with DH, that is much more likely. But with the Cubs, yeah, I don't see any fit. And I don't know how much I should really even read into it. Having just one representative, one guy from the organization at a showcase might just simply mean he's attending there just to watch, like that they're not really seriously in on him. There were 10 other teams there?
There was
something like that.
Yeah, 11 teams were there.
Yeah, so I don't think there's going to be a chance that he comes here. I mean, I just don't see a fit, at least to the Cubs. To the White Sox, different story. But to the Cubs, I don't.
Is any team in the AL, for the most part, I can see being there, just kicking the tires and seeing what, because not that long ago, the guy was dominant.
Yeah, and he was always a better hitter than fielder. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But man, he just, let's see, his batting average, let's see, 2015, 291, 280 in 2016, 292 in 2017, 262 in 2018. And then he didn't play in 2019. In 2020, he only played in 8 games, but his batting average, his slash line was 161, 235, 387.
Yee.
That's not good.
No, that's not good at all.
But there was, you look at 2015, 2016, the guy in 2014, he was a 3.5 F-WAR. In 2015, he was a 5.8 F-WAR. In 2016, he was a 3.7 F-WAR. In 2017, he was a 1.6. In 2018, he was a 1 WAR. So he's, not too long ago, he's a solid baseball player. And obviously his WAR is going to go up when he's not fielding because he's not that good of a fielder. So I just, for an AL team, yeah, that makes sense to be there. I just don't understand the Cubs' interest at all, other than just showing a face. Maybe there's a trying playing nice with the agent.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be there to observe. I mean, I don't think they were ever really serious on it. So I'm not reading too much into it. His projections for this coming year are a slash line of, let's find like an average number in here, 226, 290, 428. Read that again. I'm sorry.
226, 290, 428.
And that's over what?
That's a projection for this year.
That's a projection. Okay.
With they're projecting 62 games and around between 11 and 14 home runs. The best projection they have is 241, 309, 470 slash line.
Yeah.
Which is not that great.
That's not.
But man, if you could get that 2017 slash line at 292, 352, and 540, you would take that. You would take that. And that was 17 home runs in 81 games.
Yeah, that ain't bad.
No. Or the 2015 slash line at 291, 328, 542 with 35 home runs.
And that was when he went over to the Mets.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't think the White Sox make the move for him. I think they're probably pretty happy with what they got.
Yeah, I think so too.
But
they're just more likely to.
I would say I'm a betting man, my money, if one of those two teams is going to sign him, it's going to be the White Sox by a landslide.
Yeah, no kidding.
Jake Arrieta pitched today.
Yes, he did. I wish I could have watched it, but 2 innings, no runs. I don't think he struck anybody out, but he didn't let up anything. It was his first pitching action of the spring, so glad he's kind of got that under his belt.
And, he looked okay. He only pitched, 2 innings?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that his command looks good. That's what I'm really looking for, at least early on.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. Lucas Giolito made a start today and looked good. Good for the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
It's early. It's really early in spring training. Not much you can take away from it other than guys have good command and not getting hit.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to read into a lot of it, but you do like to take some of the good things you see. You like seeing Lance Lynn do well for the White Sox. You like seeing Nico Horner hit the ball for the Cubs. He's been really swinging it this preseason. And you're seeing Jock Peterson and Anthony Rizzo hit some bombs. Not to try to be too panicky, but Chris Bryant still does not look right.
No, he doesn't.
He is just like, it looks like every swing is slow and labored. Like he's just kind of half sticking his bat out. It's funny. He's got a few ground ball singles, and then one of the few times he drives it hard into the outfield that's caught. So, that's kind of the way things go with baseball, but he still does not look right. He's had some pretty rough at-bats. Austin Romine is making him look bad right now.
Yeah, there's no way they're going to be able to trade him.
Unless, he just turns it on in the regular season or he's just off to a slow start. Again, I am not trying to panic too much, but just looking at the injury last year where he didn't look right and where he looks like right now, I've seen some of the swings and just, So he gets thrown a breaking ball on the outer edge and he just tries to hit it and he doesn't come within a country mile of it.
There's one more thing I wanted to mention with the Cubs is we had talked a few weeks ago about how the rumblings were that the Cubs would probably be looking for a left-handed hitting second baseman. And they agreed to a minor league deal with Eric Sogard, who we have known for the last few years playing with the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, whoop-de-doo. It's depth. It's depth.
Since dating back to 2017, he's a 257, 343, 377 slash hitter, 93 WRC plus in 1,000 plate appearances.
Overall, that looks okay. It's just the fact that it seemed like most of that production was in 1 year.
Probably, yeah.
I think it was 2017. He had a really good year with the Brewers.
My favorite comment on the Bleacher Report about that signing, though, is he hit a home run last year and he wears glasses. I remember he hit the home run against the Cubs.
Of course he did.
And he does wear glasses.
Yes, he does.
So, I still would rather see Jason Kipnis, but not my decision, I guess.
Yeah, he's with the Braves now.
So, I don't know who. We looked at the list. I don't remember offhand, but the list of left-handed hitting second baseman was pretty slim.
Yeah, there were plenty on the board early on, but those had pretty much gone. So it's down to the very last few. It's the bottom of the barrel now. It's the old washed up, the rejects, and all those type of people. Sometimes you find a diamond in the rough, but you're low risk, high reward. You're just not gambling on them making a big splash at this point, and nobody really expected that. So you might as well fill up with as much depth as you can. That's the way I look at it.
I'm looking at the best available free agents in Major League Baseball. Rick Porcello. Cole.
Wow, he's still there, huh? Wow.
He is there. He made 12 starts for the Mets last year with a 5.64 ERA. Cole Hamels still available.
Boy, if it was a few years ago, I would have loved to have Cole Hamels back. I just think he's done.
Oh yeah, he's done, which sucks because he had a great career.
He did. I mean, as good as John Lester is, if you're going to argue John Lester for the Hall of Fame, then you have to argue Cole Hamels because he's arguably had an even better career.
Yeah, we value Lester more because of where he did it.
And man, when he was a Cub, before he got injured, he was fantastic for us. I mean, that stretch in 2018 and the beginning of 2019, he was arguably their best starter.
Yep, absolutely. Who else is on this list? Shane Green.
Remember when he was good a few years ago? For the Tigers, I think it was.
Yeah. Maikel Franco.
I remember when he was a notable, upcoming name. With the Phillies, I think.
Yep. Jed Yorko.
Oh, the Jerk Store?
Yeah.
Nice.
He's still available.
He'll go back to the Cardinals and hit 30 home runs.
He hit a slash line of 248, 333, 504. That's
not bad.
That's not bad.
Wasn't that with the Brewers?
That was with the Brewers.
Yeah.
Huh. I'm surprised then that he's still available. Other names that you can consider: Roberto Osuna, Yasiel Puig.
Yeah, you don't want Roberto Osuna.
Edwin Encarnacion, and Homer Bailey.
Homer Bailey. Oh man, he looks like Christian Bale from what was the one movie where he's crazy?
The Machinist?
No. Where he's like a serial killer?
I don't know that one. Oh, American Psycho?
Yes, thank you. I remember looking at a photo of him in that movie and looking at Homer Bailey. I'm like, oh my God.
Homer Bailey.
Remember when the Reds gave him all that money?
They did. They gave him a lot of money.
Yep, he threw a couple of no-hitters and then he got paid. Good for him, though.
Old dancing Homer.
Getting that money. Now Homer's dance off his balls, if you know what I mean.
I guess you could put Jeremy Jeffress on that list.
Yeah, you can now.
How bad of a head case does Yasiel Puig have to be that he can't find a job?
Well, I just think that I've heard some controversial things about him. Wasn't he under investigation for something?
I'm sure he was.
I don't remember what it was specifically, but yeah, that's clearly kind of hindered him getting a job. And he's been the kind of guy where you see the talent, you see the ability, but there's just a lot of other stuff going on there.
He's a decent hitter.
I remember when he came up. Remember when he came up in 2013 and he just tore the cover off the ball?
Yeah, I mean, he's a career slash line of 277, 348, 475. 823 OPS.
823 OPS. That's not bad at all.
No, and he just turned 30 years old.
Man, he's only 30. You see, he's not old. It's not like he's 36, 37.
Yeah, so I don't know. There must be just like some bad juju because to have a guy that can hit like that, and nobody wants to sign him.
Yeah, well, when you get into other troubles, that's going to steer people away.
He's never had a season where he was below a 1 WAR.
Yeah, well, I mean, his defense is weird because when he plays full, he could be pretty good. I mean, he's got a really strong arm.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play last year.
Nope.
Doesn't look like he's going to play this year.
Unless someone swoops in last minute or he goes overseas or something, or, maybe he ends up somewhere else.
I don't know. We'll see. It's because, don't teammates like him? Teammates have said positive things about him?
I don't know. I've always heard mixed things.
Yeah, I don't know enough, so I will just leave it be. But it's the guy has an interesting enough batting stats to make you question why a 30-year-old sits on the market for 2 years that had stats that are pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unless he's got some outstanding thing that I don't know about, which is possible. I don't follow Yasiel.
Well, again, I've heard there have been accusations of stuff happening, so...
I mean, if there are, then that would probably explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Allegations. Oh, I take that back. You're right. He's being right around Halloween. He was being sued by a woman who alleges he has sexually assaulted her at the Staples Center in 2018.
Yeah, I knew there was something. Not good.
No. That would probably explain some things. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Yeah, so I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn app, Google Play, Spotify. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Again, share this podcast with your friends. It's how we grow the show. And thank you for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears!
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down